Oliver Cromwell was born on April 25, 1599 in Huntingdon and was the son of Robert Cromwell and Elizabeth, his second wife. He studied at the Huntingdon Grammar School and at the Sidney Sussex College, Cambridge, but dropped out in June 1617 after his father's death without graduating. In 1620, August 22nd, Cromwell married Elizabeth Bourchier, whom he had 9 children with, and was brought into a relationship with Oliver St. John and the leader of the London merchant community as a result of his marriage. Cromwell went through a period from the 1620s and 1630s where he was in crisis. Although he was elected to Parliament in 1628 to represent the Huntingdonshire county town of Huntingdon, he was left without work after the dissolving of the Parliament by Charles I in 1629, who preferred to rule without a Parliament for the next 11 years. Cromwell also resulted in treatment for a variety of ailments that ranged from emotional to physical. He moved to a farmstead at St. Ives in 1631 after selling off most of his properties in Huntingdon and began small holding of chickens and sheep, along with his brother Henry. He also sold eggs and wool to take care of himself and his family. However, luck met him in 1636 when he inherited control of different properties from his maternal uncle for Ely Cathedral. His yearly earnings then increased to around 300 to 400 pounds that by the end of 1630s he was reinstated to an acknowledged rank of the gentry. Cromwell returned to the Parliament in 1640 as a member of Cambridge, but that Parliament, which is referred to as the Short Parliament, lasted only 3 weeks before it was dissolved. He went back to London that same year with his family. However, in 1641, the Parliament was called back and became known as the Long Parliament. The Congress had issues it could not resolve that led to an armed conflict between the Parliament and Charles I in 1642, at the time the English Civil War began. Cromwell recruited a troop to block the valuable shipment of silver plates that came from Cambridge for the king. He also had success in East Anglia in 1643, gaining experience even as the Battle of Gainsborough. After this, he was appointed a colonel in the Eastern Association and governor of the Isle of Ely. Cromwell rose to the rank of lieutenant general in Manchester's army during the time of the Battle of Marston Moor in July 1644. The next year, the army was remodeled at the Parliament's request when they passed the Self-Denying Ordinance. Cromwell was a great part of the military reforms. He introduced a system of fighting that was close order. However, he had no significant military training. His formations with troopers that rode knee to knee was a new formation in England at the time and contributed immensely to his victories. After the dissolution of some of the Parliament members, those who were left, known as the Rump Parliament in December 1648, tried Charles on the charges of treason. Cromwell was a supporter of the king's trial and execution, believing that executing Charles was the only way to end the civil war. Cromwell was the third signatory of the 59 who signed the death warrant issued for Charles, and on January 30th, 1649, King Charles was executed. A republic was then declared after the execution of Charles and was called the Commonwealth of England, that was led by the Rump Parliament, which exercised both the legislative and executive powers. But there was a rebellion and mutinies that followed. Therefore, Cromwell led his men and quelled the rebellions. Afterwards, he left for Ireland and led parliamentary invasion of Ireland from 1649 to 1650. He was exceptionally hostile to the Irish religion and the political parties. He passionately opposed the Catholic Church, which he accused of denying the Bible and honoring the papal and clerical authorities instead. He also blamed the Catholic Church for suspected tyranny and for the persecution of Protestants in the continent of Europe. Despite this, Cromwell was seeking for negotiation of surrender when his soldiers disobeyed his order and broke into two, killing 2,000 Irish troops and 1,500 civilians, burning down most of the town. Cromwell's victory in Ireland were mostly diplomatic than that of military strategies. Due to the conquest of Ireland by the Commonwealth, Catholic priests were killed and the practice of Roman Catholicism was banned. The lands owned by Catholics were also confiscated and given to the Scottish and England settlers under the Settlement of Ireland Act of 1652. In May 1650, Cromwell departed from Ireland and went to invade Scotland after they proclaimed Charles II, son of Charles I, as king, and rejected his appeal not to enthrone Charles as king. The victory against Scotland was so great that Cromwell called it a high act of the Lord's providence to us and one of the most signal mercies God had done for England and his people. Charles II and his allies of Scotland tried to invade England the next year to capture London while Cromwell was fighting in Scotland. But Cromwell destroyed the last of Scotland's royalist army in 1651 at the Battle of Worcester. Charles II fled to France and the Netherlands in self-exile and remained there till 1660. Despite the conquest of Cromwell in Scotland, there was no bitterness between the Commonwealth and the Protectorate. The Rump Parliament was dissolved and a new constitution was put forward by John Lambert, known as the Instrument of Government. The constitution made Cromwell Lord Protector for life and granted him powers to undertake government administration and a chief magistracy. Cromwell was officially sworn in as Lord Protector on December 16, 1653. Henceforth, Cromwell signed his name as Oliver P. and became addressed as Your Highness. He was paid £100,000 yearly as Lord Protector and expounded his two major objectives, the first being to heal and settle the nations of the chaos of the Civil War. He established a new government to take over. When the Parliament started pushing for more radical and republican reforms, Cromwell dissolved the Parliament to avoid any further opposition. His second objective was more of the moral and spiritual reform aimed to restore the liberty of conscience, promoting outward and inward godliness all through England. He was offered the crown in 1657 by the Parliament. It seemed like a dilemma to him at first, since he had been key to abolishing the monarchy. However, on April 13, 1657, Cromwell stated that he would not take the crown, saying that, "I would not seek to set up that which Providence had destroyed and laid in the dust. I would not build Jericho again." Cromwell suffered from malaria and kidney stone at the age of 59 and died on September 3, 1658 at Whitehall. He was given an elaborate burial, accompanied by a great ceremony at Westminster Abbey. His son Richard succeeded him as Lord Protector, but he had no power like that of his father and was forced to resign in May 1659, thus ending the Protectorate. On January 30, 1661, on the 12th anniversary of Charles I execution, Cromwell's body was exhumed and given a posthumous execution. They hung his body in chains at Tyburn, London, and later threw it into a pit. His head was cut out, put on display outside of Westminster Hall on a pole until 1685. Cromwell's head was later owned by different people and was later put on a documented sale in 1814 by Josiah Henry Wilkinson before it was finally buried beneath Ante-Chapel in Sidney Sussex College, Cambridge, 1960. Cromwell was portrayed as a hypocrite who was power-motivated during his lifetime. The Levelers wrote the Machiavellian Cromwells and the Jugglers discovered as attacks on Cromwell in 1647. However, he has been honored through the years in various ways, and in 1676, a ship commissioned for the American Continental Navy was named Oliver Cromwell during the American Revolutionary War. A statue was also raised for Cromwell by Matthew Noble in 1875 at Manchester. Cromwell remains one of the world's most controversial figures in the history of the British Isles. He was considered a military dictator by historian David Sharp and Winston Churchill. John Milton, Samuel Rawson Gardiner, and Thomas Carlyle have described him as a hero of liberty. Cromwell was elected BBC 2002 poll as one of the 10 greatest Britons of all time. Thank you very much for watching our videos. We'll appreciate it if you subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends. We love you.